Swimmers are trying to create as much speed as possible to make it to the other side of the pool as quickly as possible. That requires optimizing the entirety of the stroke rather than maximizing any one component. Specific to the finish of the stroke in freestyle, that's the point in the stroke where swimmers' hands are moving their fastest, and it's the point in the stroke cycle where swimmers achieve their highest speeds. From that perspective, it makes sense to get as much out of the finish as possible, yet that's not what swimmers do. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. Despite having the highest hand speeds and despite having the fastest body speed, swimmers don't maximize the finish of their stroke in freestyle. Instead, they try to optimize it to help it fit within the context of the whole stroke. During the finish of the stroke, the hands are moving at their fastest point within the pool. While swimmers can use that to try to create even more propulsion, they can also use that hand speed and carry it into the recovery, and that means the recovery is going to be a lot faster and it's going to be a whole lot more effortless. And so that's where the trade-off emerges. The more swimmers try to finish their stroke, try to fully straighten their arm, they're probably going to be able to create a little bit more propulsion. However, the more that they straighten their arm, the more difficult it's going to be to fluidly transition into the recovery of the stroke. If they fully straighten their arm, the hand is going to lose all its speed. They're going to have to literally pick their arm up, drag it forward. In contrast, if they start the finish early, the elbow is still going to be bent, the hand's still going to have a whole lot of speed. It can just slide right out and whip around, and that's going to create a whole lot less effort, and it's going to create more speed through the recovery. The other consideration is that the more swimmers straighten their arm during the finish, the less surface area they're going to have that's moving backwards. And so the more swimmers try to finish their stroke, they will create a little bit more propulsion, but that amount of propulsion becomes less and less, and the consequences of continuing to straighten the arm become more and more in terms of the negative impact on the recovery. So the finish of the stroke is all about optimization. Swimmers are trying to create as much propulsion as possible for as long as possible, and they're trying to do that without compromising the recovery of the arm. If they do that, they're going to get a whole lot more tired, a whole lot quicker, and that's going to ultimately slow them down in the long run. So that's the concept of what swimmers are trying to do. Let's take a look at how they make it happen. So we'll take a look at some middle distance and distance swimmers first, as it's a little bit easier to see. However, in sprinters, we will see the same behavior. So if we watch here on the right arm, we're going to see here the elbow is bent, and then the elbow is actually going to exit before the hand, and you can see that the elbow is still very bent at that point. She's going to finish right about at her hip. If she wanted to, she could straighten the arm, probably get that midway down the thigh, but that's not what she chooses to do. Instead of pulling straight back and fully straightening the arm, she gets as far as she can. She's still got her whole forearm facing backwards, but when she gets to the point where it becomes more and more difficult to do that, that's when she's going to start to slide out, transition into the recovery, and you can see she's got a whole lot of hand speed as she's exiting the water, and that's going to make it really easy to carry that momentum into the arm recovery. If we look at the other arm, we're going to see the same thing. It's a little bit different angle, so you can appreciate what's happening from a slightly different perspective. You can see that the elbow is very bent there, and then she's again going to pull it out right about the hip, rather than trying to fully straighten it and fully getting as much as she can out of the pull. She's going to compromise the pull in order to optimize the whole stroke by enhancing the recovery. So again, we'll see here, she's definitely leading with the elbow. The hand is not going as far back as it could, and that's going to allow her to smoothly transition to the recovery, and that's going to optimize the whole stroke. So another swimmer here, we can see that the elbow is very bent. It's going to stay very bent. And again, he's coming out. There's going to be a little bit of extension at the end, but he's bringing the hand out much earlier than he could have. The elbow is leading it. He's not fully straightening the arm. And you can see that the hand just swings through. It's going to swing right around, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier for him to get into the next stroke cycle. And we can see on the other hand, the hand disappears there right about hip level. And again, it's going to be the same thing. Elbow leading the pull out, the pull stopping short. And again, it's all about the trade-off. From this position, he could straighten his arm down to mid-thigh, but that's going to bring the hand speed almost to a stop, and then it's going to be very difficult to recover. So he gets as much as he can out of that pull and then transitions into the recovery. And so throughout this pull, you can see the whole forearm is facing backwards, and he maintains that position pretty much to the very end. And so at this point, he's not going to be able to do that much longer. And so if he did straighten his arm, it's pretty much just the hand facing back. So there's going to be a huge drop off in propulsion anyway. It's going to be a lot more effective to easily get into the next recovery, which allows him to get into the next stroke, which he can create even more propulsion. So all about trade-offs again, more about optimizing the whole stroke cycle rather than trying to maximize a given component of the stroke cycle. So different angle here, we'll see the same thing. The elbow is very bent here, and then boom, that elbow is exiting out. The hand is exiting out right about the line of his suit, maybe a little bit below that, but certainly not down near mid-thigh where it could if you wanted to. So we'll see the same thing again here. Elbow remains bent. The elbow is now out of the water. The hand is starting to follow it. And so you can see he's got a lot of hand speed, a lot of arm speed as he moves through the finish. And that's going to allow him to recover that really quickly. So in the sprints, having a really fast recovery speed is really critical in order to maintain a fast cycle rate. And then in the distance events, they still have to maintain a decent tempo, but efficiency becomes really important. So they're trying to make sure that they're not maximizing the finish so that they can have nearly effortless recoveries, which is going to be really important for conserving energy so that they can continue to race at a high level. So again, elbow remains bent, elbow is coming out, and then the hand follows. So it's not about finishing as far back as possible. It's about finishing as far back as optimal. If anyone has an incentive to maximize propulsion, it's sprinters. And so if anyone's going to exhibit a fully straightened, a fully maximized finish, you'd think it'd be the sprinters. However, that's not what we're going to see. And so you can see elbow is still bent here. He's not finishing as far back as he could. He may be finishing a little bit further back than the distance swimmers do. And again, we've got different incentives at play here, trying to maximize speed versus trying to maximize efficiency and speed. And so you're going to see a little bit straighter, but they have to keep a really fast cycle rate. So they're going to optimize the finish rather than maximizing it. And you can see here, elbow is very bent. He doesn't fully extend there. He's not going to fully straighten the arm. And again, you can see that here, he's pulling the arm out right when he's no longer able to keep his whole forearm facing backwards. There's going to be a big drop off on propulsion, so it's better to bail on it, maintain the hand speed, get into the next recovery. And so we'll see that again here. He's going to keep rolling with that, and that's going to be the way that they're going to optimize the finish rather than maximize it. So another sprinter here, and we're going to see the same behavior. So if you watch that left arm there, you can see the elbow is bent and it's coming out right about where her hips are, not mid-thigh, which is what she could do if she straightened her arm fully. So same thing in front of us. We've got the elbow bent. The elbow is leading the recovery. The hand's exiting around the hip level. And again, it's all about trying to get as much propulsion as possible. She's still got her whole arm facing backwards up until this point. She's not going to really be able to do that beyond that. So she bails on it. And if we watch the hand speed, you can see that the hand speed is maintained through the exit, through the finish. And again, that's going to allow her to quickly whip the arm around, get it in position to create more propulsion in the next stroke cycle. So again, optimization of any component of the stroke is more important than maximizing any component of the stroke. And if swimmers want to swim fast, they have to figure out how to manage the different components so that they can create as much speed as possible. For more on how to help freestylers create as much propulsion as possible, check out the video below.